U.S. Secretary of State could visit China in coming weeks. China uses AI tech to spot protest banners. South Korea scrambles fighter jets after China and Russia enter its air defense zone. Early phase, White House official says about U.S. and China re-engagement. In the coming weeks, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken will go to China for talks, an official told Reuters on June 6th. The official, who asked not to be named, did not give a specific time for Blinken's visit. The State Department also did not confirm that the U.S. Secretary of State plans to visit Beijing in the near future. Deputy spokesman Vedant Patel said, "We have no travel for the Secretary to announce. As we've said previously, the visit to the People's Republic of China will be rescheduled when conditions allow." However, during a recent Hudson Institute event, despite not mentioning Blinken's visit to China, the U.S. Indo-Pacific Coordinator Kurt Campbell revealed that the relationship between the Biden administration and China's regime was improving. Campbell said, "The lines of communication are opening up, and we are able to lay out more constructively our areas of interest and concern." Reporters asked the State Department's top official for East Asia, Daniel Crittenbrink, if Blinken would be going to China soon. Crittenbrink replied, "We'll see," and said the U.S. was working hard to manage the relationship with China. Blinken had to postpone a visit to China in February, after the U.S.-China relationship became tense over a Chinese balloon suspected of spying across the U.S. In May, Reuters reported that the U.S. State Department delayed sanctions related to CCP's human rights violations and other sensitive actions to avoid further damaging already strained relations with Beijing. Thanks to AI advances, China appears to have already developed a protest alert system that reports to authorities right when a banner is being hung. According to IPVM, a US-based surveillance research firm, Chinese surveillance equipment provider Dahua Technology produces the new surveillance system. The company launched an AI platform in 2021 named Jin, which was supposed to provide analytics on things like hard hats, indoor smoking, and worker idleness. Yet amongst that was an unfurl banner feature, which Dahua said was for promoting social safety and social governance. The two fancy terms the Chinese Communist Party, or CCP, often uses to describe its crackdown on protesters and dissidents. With the help of AI technology, Unfurl Banner's website said, if a person holding a banner is detected within the camera field and lasts for a certain period of time, a police alarm will be generated. In one demonstration of the system, the technology detected the banner and the faces of those hanging it. The solution from Dahua also claims it can automatically spot banners or placards that are 100 to 500 pixels in size in 1080p resolution. The Chinese surveillance firm later deleted information about the technology from its website, but IPVM managed to store an archive of the page. IPVM said these protester alarms were live and available in May 2023, but suspected they may have been offered for years. The report says, "This is nothing new for Dahua, which has a history of deleting evidence off its own website. Last year, Dahua reportedly deleted evidence of its close ties with the Chinese military in Hong Kong and Tibet. The US and its allies already sanctioned the company for its role in Beijing's monitoring of the Uyghur minorities." China and Russia carried out their sixth joint air patrol on June 6th over the Sea of Japan and the East China Sea. This action prompted South Korea and Japan to respond by deploying fighter jets. According to Reuters, South Korea's military scrambled Air Force jets in response to 4 Chinese and 4 Russian military aircraft entering its air defense identification zone on Tuesday. The Chinese Communist Party, or CCP's defense ministry, stated that the joint patrol with Russia was part of their annual cooperation plan, which coincided with US-South Korean joint exercises on the Korean peninsula. An air defense zone is a designated area where countries require foreign aircraft to follow specific protocols for identification. Unlike a country's airspace, which covers its territory and territorial waters, there are no universally established international rules for air defense zones. During the CCP's previous joint area patrol with Russia in November last year, South Korea responded by dispatching fighter jets as Chinese H-6K bombers Russian Tu-95 bombers, and Su-35 fighter jets entered its air defense identification zone. The White House stated that recent incidents between the US and CCP forces in the Taiwan Strait and South China Sea demonstrate an increased aggressiveness from the CCP's military, raising the risk of potential accidents in which somebody gets hurt. During a joint exercise by the US and Canadian navies in the Taiwan Strait, a Chinese warship approached within 150 yards of a US destroyer, sparking safety concerns about the maneuver. In another incident, a video captured a Chinese fighter jet flying in front of a US plane, causing turbulence and shaking the cockpit of the RC-135. According to the White House's top Asia official, the US and China have recently resumed diplomatic relations after tensions caused a rupture in communications, and the trajectory of any rapprochement remains uncertain. As reported by Bloomberg on June 7th, at an event hosted by the Center for Strategic and International Studies, Kurt Campbell, the White House's Indo-Pacific coordinator, said, "We are still relatively early in the process of this round of re-engagement in terms of dialogue and diplomacy." According to Campbell, the US believes competition between the two nations will continue to be in the dominant frame of the relationship. Campbell said Washington wanted to engage in constructive diplomacy with Beijing and hoped to work together on international issues like climate change. However, competition will remain the focus. He said, "But at the same time, we want that competition to remain within responsible bounds, and we want to avert a descent into confrontation." He referred to the American opinion that it's essential to create mechanisms of communication and discussion that can address mishaps or a lack of coordination when military aircraft or vessels are operating nearby. Those two incidents, a Chinese fighter jet diverting into the path of a US surveillance aircraft, and a Chinese naval vessel similarly cutting across the course of a US destroyer, alarmed US officials in the South China Sea over the past week. Another sign of how the two sides have failed to resume regular communications in the military sphere is that China's Defense Minister Li Xiangfu, who the US government sanctions, rejected a request by Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin to meet. At the same time, the two officials were both present at a security conference in Singapore,